Welcome to RSA Conference 2023. We are broadcasting live from Broadcast Alley. I am Jeff Mann. I'm a co-host in Paul's Security Weekly, and I'm sitting here with Theresa Lanowitz. Theresa is the head of cybersecurity evangelism for AT&T Business. Theresa, welcome to RSA.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It is awesome to be here in Broadcast Alley. This is just so exciting.
It's awesome to be back at real live
Yeah.
conferences. We're still saying that after years of lockdown and shutdown. Tell us about this thing that's sitting next to us. AT&T's put out, how many years has this been?
So this is our 12th edition.
12th
This
edition.
is the AT&T Cybersecurity Insights Report. It's our 12th edition, and it's launching today, April 24th, here at RSA.
Okay.
And so this is the 12th edition, and what we've been doing for the past 4 editions is really taking a look at how this new generation of network, lower latency, higher bandwidth, is really impacting the next generation of computing, and what you're doing to secure those assets that you're putting on that new style of network. So what you're doing to secure the data, the applications, the endpoints, and so on. And so this one is really focused on the edge ecosystem. And that ecosystem is internal as well as external. So, some of the things we found from this edition of the report, this is a qualitative report as well as a quantitative report. It's a quantitative report, global audience. We surveyed 1,418 people for this report.
Wow.
From security, line of business, application development, network, operations organizations from around the world.
Right.
And what they told us this year was that security is not a do-it-yourself activity as you're moving to the edge. So you really need that internal collaboration. So we're starting to see those silos that have been erected over the past 40, 50 plus years. We're starting to see those break down. But what they also told us was that bringing in that third-party trusted advisor was critically important for them.
Hey, before we get too far, I always like to qualify topics for our listening audience, not assume that everybody knows everything that we talk about. Can you just give us a real brief rundown of what we're talking about when we talk about the edge?
Yeah, so if you talk about edge, and edge is a really, really popular term right now, and that definition of edge is really in flux.
Okay.
And depending
Like
upon
every other term in our
Exactly.
industry. Okay.
So depending upon who you talk to, and that definition tends to skew to, if you're a vendor, it tends to skew to the tech stack that you're selling.
Right.
If you're an enterprise user of that technology, it tends to skew towards that stack that you're using.
Gotcha.
So what we did for the purpose of this report, we said there are 3 common characteristics that you need to think about when you think about edge.
Okay.
The first, it's software defined, and that can be on-prem or in the cloud.
Okay.
Secondly, your workloads, your applications, it's closer to where that data is being generated and consumed. And then the third characteristic is it's that distributed model of management, intelligence, and networks. And if you think about those characteristics, you say, okay, that's pretty academic, but think about it in real life. We've all experienced edge computing. Think about going into a public parking structure, and you have those boards that say, level 1, there are 2 spots available. And you say, well, I'm not going to drive around, I'll go up to level 2.
Right.
Level 2, 40 spots available. That's edge computing. It's that near real-time information, because that data, when a car pulls out of that parking spot, that data is not being backhauled to a data center somewhere. It's living right there on that edge. So that's how we have defined those 3 common characteristics.
Okay.
And we've seen edge use cases really, really evolve over the past couple of years. So there's a lot of business benefit. Organizations are looking at this saying we need to really figure out what the business outcome is going to be for edge and what we're going to do, because they see it as a business differentiator.
So I'm guessing one of the questions and something that's addressed in the report is what are the problems, what are the security issues that all these companies and organizations that are trying to deal with the edge are experiencing, so that you're getting real feedback from real edge users or consumers.
Yeah, most definitely. And we surveyed 7 different industry verticals.
Okay.
So healthcare, retail, finance, energy and utilities, manufacturing, transportation, and U.S. SLED, so state, local government, and higher education. And so in the report, we talk about use cases for all 7 of these industries. And we also show where we were last year, from the research from last year to the research from this year. So things from a financial perspective, things like real-time fraud prevention, from manufacturing, smart warehousing, from U.S. SLED, smart buildings. So there are a lot of really interesting edge use cases. And we found that 57% of our survey respondents are either in proof of concept mode, partial implementation, or full implementation. So that's really compelling news, really important information to come out. But one of the things that we also found is that organizations are saying, you know what, right now for the edge, the common endpoints that we're using are laptops, desktops, tablets, and phones. And 48% of people said, yeah, those are those most common endpoints. But 30% of our participants said, you know what, we're looking at these new intentional purpose-built devices for edge computing. So things like autonomous robots, autonomous vehicles, autonomous drones, wearables for after surgery, things that only give you exactly the information you need. You don't have that bloat of the software stack and so on. So there's some really interesting stuff going on there.
It's fascinating and scary all at the same time. I was in Phoenix for a few days, over the weekend, visiting family on my way out here, and we were out driving one afternoon, and they had I forget what the company is, and I shouldn't endorse them, but they had a driverless car. That's one of their test beds, and it was just a little unnerving to look over and see nobody behind the wheel of a car that's driving right beside you.
Yeah, going at those speeds, right?
It put me on edge, I'll tell you that. So you mentioned 7 verticals. I mean, I would imagine, like all things in the cybersecurity and the IT world, there's a lot of things that are uniquely the same, and there's a lot of things that are uniquely different. Anything that really stood out that's reflected in the report?
Yeah, the interesting thing is we see a pretty balanced approach to investment for security, and that's across the board. So you said uniquely the same and then uniquely different. So across all industries, they told us that on average they're investing 22% of their overall edge budget in security. And you think, well, 22%, okay, but what does that compare to? We asked them about security, applications, network, and then strategy and planning. So network was 30%, applications 23%, strategy and planning 23%, and security 22%. So the reason I am so encouraged by that is if you think back just 3-5 years, people would not be investing proactively that much in security. So, and again, that's an increase from what we found last year. Last year, the security investment was somewhere between 11 to 21% was kind of the sweet spot. But this year, we're seeing 22% across the board. Organizations are saying they're investing in security. So there's that balanced investment, which goes back to that idea of those silos that we've built up in our IT organizations over the past 4 or 5 plus decades are starting to erode. So it's no longer just one team saying, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to give all my money to this one area, and oh, security, you're an afterthought, applications, you're an afterthought. Because if you think about it, the applications are starting to change as well. Those applications will be far more ephemeral. They'll be headless, non-GUI types of applications, and we're getting away from that idea of we're sitting there at our laptops, we're sitting there at our tablets or our phones. It's about machine-to-machine communication and getting that relative, near real-time information.
So what is, I come from the traditional world. I've been doing this a long time where, in the early days of what we used to call internet security, it was all about securing the perimeter and keeping everything safe on the inside. And I can see the nuance between edge and perimeter, because edge is significantly different from, nobody's trying to get in anymore because everybody's outside of there is no in. What are some of the challenges that security teams are facing in trying to, I can't imagine that they do the traditional anymore with edge technologies. They've got to come up with new ways of doing new things. Touch on that a little bit.
It's all in there, right? So, and this is a very comprehensive report, 52 pages. One of the things we see is that the more organizations put out edge use cases in either full or partial implementation, the more they're aware of the cybersecurity controls that they need. And I think where we are, there's this cultural shift in cybersecurity right now. And the thinking is changing from this legacy thinking, like you said, the perimeter, kind of everything's inside our data center.
I'm a dinosaur, I admit it.
But everything's kind of in our data center to everything's now at the edge, and we have to think differently about this. And even in terms of the types of attacks that we're seeing, one of the really, really interesting data points in here is that The top attack that people were concerned about this year is DDoS. The top attack that they were concerned about last year in 2022 was ransomware.
Interesting.
And if you think about what has happened with ransomware, all the big ransomware attacks we had in 2021, everybody bolstered their security hygiene. Everybody said, we're going to train people what to click on, what a malicious link looks like, that sort of thing. And as an industry,
we're going to patch our systems because we finally have a reason to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, patching is a really interesting point as well in this report. But so, ransomware kind of people feel as though, they've done a lot. But now DDoS is starting to come apart. And this is kind of that progression of, here we are, legacy cybersecurity, now we're moving to the edge. So we're going to suddenly start to think a little bit differently. So DDoS, that old-fashioned DDoS attack, is now coming back because we're living now in a world of things, right? We're moving away from the laptops and the desktops and the tablets. So we're living in those sensors inside of a parking garage. We're living inside of wearables that we might have for post-surgery. So to actually execute a DDoS attack is something that an adversary can really get a lot, gain a lot with, and then work in conjunction, of course, with a ransomware gang. So that idea of DDoS coming back is kind of the top attack vector that we're seeing, and that's what we saw across the board. That was the most common one. And in the report, we have it broken down by different industries. So for example, manufacturing, they're very, very concerned about attacks against the endpoint. Financial services, they're very concerned about business email compromise. So you can take a look at it and see that different industries are worrying about different things. And what I always advise people to do is take a look at this report, use it as a guide to start the discussion inside of your own organization. Everybody's thinking a little bit differently. Everybody's looking at things differently. Do you concur with what your organizational peers, your financial or your industry peers are saying, or are you kind of seeing something completely different?
Right.
So
AT&T obviously knows a little bit about the networks and and knows all of them. What is AT&T Business offering to help clients out beyond giving us a lot of good information?
Yeah, so AT&T Cybersecurity, we offer two ways for our clients to engage with us. The first is through cybersecurity consulting, and the second is through our AT&T Cybersecurity Managed Security Services.
Okay.
So that's the two ways to engage with AT&T Cybersecurity. And we also have Alien Labs, which is our threat intelligence unit for AT&T Cybersecurity.
Gotcha.
And that Alien Labs Threat Intelligence Unit works in conjunction with OTX, the Open Threat Exchange, with something like 200,000 people from around the world, cybersecurity professionals, discussing and submitting indicators of compromise. Our AT&T Alien Labs team takes that, enriches the data that's coming through in the indicators of compromise, and then they use that to really fuel everything that we're doing inside of our SOCs. So we have 9 global SOCs that operate 24/7, 365. Every type of certification you want, our cybersecurity consultants have it, our cybersecurity SOC analysts have it. So we offer a variety of ways to really engage.
Super. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time away from your busy conference schedule to sit down and chat with us. Really excited. I'm not going to do it this week, it's too busy, but to sit down and digest this report. For those listening, if you want to get a copy of The Edge and learn more about what AT&T Business is doing, you can go to securityweekly.com/ATT RSAC. That's Alpha Tango Tango, Romeo Sierra Alpha Charlie for you DoD types. Thank you. Thanks, Theresa.
Thank you so much, Jeff.